Hello everyone, I'm Ben DiBono. Welcome to another foray into the Summa Theologica. Today we are looking at question 40. A little bit of delay since the last question came out. I was out of town for a while, but nevertheless we're ready to jump right back in to these last four questions of the treatise on the triune God. So we have four articles here in question 40. The persons as compared to the relations or properties. So again, we're in this comparative section. Last time we looked at the persons, how they relate to the essence. Now, how do they relate to the other, each other within the Trinity? Okay, so whether relation is the same as the person, that's Article 1, and that's where we're going to start. So, a few objections here. Number one, the Father has two relations. This would not be the case if relations and persons were identical. Number two, Aristotle says nothing is contained by itself. Relation is in the person. Number three, if they were identical, then saying the Father begets, we would say paternity begets. But we do not say this. Therefore, they are not identical. So the Father being the person, paternity being the relation there. But our argument from authority says, Boethius says, in God what is and whereby it is are identicals. In other words, the thing and how that thing comes about, the person, the relation, identical. The persons are who they are by the relations. In God, the persons are the essence, as are the relations. This goes way back to question 3, the treatise on the one God, of the divine simplicity. So nothing earth-shattering here. Therefore, because the persons are God's essence, as are his relations, therefore the persons and relations must be the same, based on the divine simplicity. So, nothing too complicated here. Similar to what we've seen before in the Summa, it's kind of just connecting the dots a little bit from previous sections, right? Okay, and then our objections answered. The persons and relations, the number one, are the same, but we signify different things by them. In other words, they're different in our mind, even though in reality they are the same. That's going to be kind of an important point throughout some of these articles today. Therefore, one can be multiplied without violating their sameness. In other words, the fact that the Father has two relations. That's multiplied in our minds, but it doesn't violate the divine simplicity. Number two, we say the relations are in the persons only to distinguish them. Thus they are in the persons, but not the essence. So, again, just making a concession for the way we have to understand God. And number three, this is simply because of a difference in signification, right? So, again, similar things we've seen before once again. Just that we have to say, in order to make some sense of God, we have to say things that may not be strictly accurate, but that's just how our minds and language and all that fun stuff works. Number two, then, whether the persons are distinguished by the relations. Okay? Simple things are distinct by themselves. The persons are supremely simple. Therefore, they are distinguished by themselves, not the relations. Objection 2. Forms are distinguished only in relation to genus. Persons are part of the genus substance. Therefore, they are not distinguished from each other by relations. In other words, they would be distinguished only by their relationship to substance. Number 3, the absolute precedes the relative. The distinction of the persons is absolute. Number 4, relation presupposes distinction, therefore cannot be the principle of distinction. But Boethius says relation alone multiplies the Trinity. All right. How does that work then? All right. Since the divine persons share one essence, something else must distinguish them. They are distinguished only by origin and relation. Origin and relation don't differ except in mode of signification. Therefore, in our understanding, relation is the primary means of distinction. So, in other words, and as we're going to kind of see, I think, as we get into the answers to the objections, some of this, that's true of how relationships work between, you and me and individuals and everything. It's not how they work between the members of the Trinity, because, we have different essences that distinguish us and accidents and all that good stuff. The Trinity doesn't. The only thing that distinguishes the divine persons is their relations. All right. The persons are the subsisting relations themselves. Therefore, that objection does not hold. About them being supremely simple. Number 2, the divine persons are distinguished as regards being, but only relatively. Number 3, the divine persons, because they are united, must be distinguished by the least possible distinction, and that's going to be relation. All right? And then when relations are subsistent, they do not presuppose distinction. So, that's a difference between our relations and the Trinitarian relations, right? All right, number 3, whether the hypostases remain if the relations are mentally abstracted from the persons. A few objections here. That to which something is added can be understood if the addition is removed. Person is something added to hypostasis. When paternity is abstracted from the Father, he still remains someone. That's true. See how we get around that one. Augustine said unbegottenness is not identical with the Father, even if he had not begotten the Son, and therefore was not the Father, he would still be unbegotten. In other words, so basically what this is asking then is if we, kind of take away these relational elements, what remains of the persons? How do we understand the persons if we abstract them from their relations? But St. Hilary is going to tell us that the Son has nothing else than birth. In other words, you can't abstract the Son from that relation. All right, so abstraction is going to be twofold. The universal is abstracted from the particular, animal is abstracted from man, and form is abstracted from matter, circle abstracted from something that is materially circular. In the first case, the particular does not remain if we abstract the universal. In the second case, both remain in the intellect. In other words, if we abstract a particular man from man in general, there's no personality there at all. Right? So, like, if you think of me and you abstract everything that makes me this man, Ben Di Bono, from man in general, or animal in general, then what's left over once that abstraction is done is none of me is left over. But if you were to take, like, my iPad here, and you abstract rectangle from the iPad, we can still look at that and say, well, we still have the understanding of the iPad in that case, right? Both remain in the intellect in that case. Although in God there is neither universal nor particular, form nor matter, nevertheless in our mode of signification our modes of signification are such as though those things did exist in God. So in answer to the article, then, it really depends on what type of abstraction we're doing. If we're doing the second type he talks about, form abstraction from matter, then the relations remain. If we abstract in the first sense, universal from the particular, they don't. I know it's kind of confusing. We'll just roll with it. All right. Replies to the objections. The distinguishing relations belong in God to both the hypostases and the persons. Therefore, nothing removing them removes both persons and hypostases. Reply to 2. By paternity, the Father is not only Father, but is a someone. And then Augustine is not speaking of the hypostases remaining if we remove paternity from the Father. All right, that's kind of a confusing one to me, a little bit. Yeah, we'll just kind of roll with it. Roll right on to Article 4. So what this is asking, the properties presuppose the notional acts. It's basically just asking, or it's looking to clarify, okay, we have the person, we have the acts of the person, and then we have the relation of the person, and what's the order of those things within our intellect. So nothing too terribly wild going on here, and nothing, too terribly important. I mean, it's important as a lot of the stuff is, but it's a little esoteric too. Number 1, in our objections then, Peter Lombard says that the Father always is because he is ever begetting the Son, and based on that, it seems that generation precedes paternity. In other words, the act precedes the person. Our understanding. Every relation presupposes that on which it is founded. Paternity, person, presupposes the act, generation. Just as filiation presupposes nativity, paternity presupposes generation. But generation is the operation of the Father, while paternity is his person. Therefore, the person must precede the operation. And further clarifying that, then, the order within the intelligence is this: it's person, action, relation. Are those all one thing in God? Yes, they are. But again, as we've seen time and time again, we must make a distinction within our intellects, even though within God they're all the same thing. In the case of the Father, the person of the Father precedes the actions of the Father begetting, which precede the relations of the Father. Okay? It's just like I said, clarifying the order these things work in our intellect. Lombard is referring to the Father as the relation of the not the person. Same thing for objection 2, referring to, if we refer to paternity as a relation, that objection is true. If we refer to it as the person of the Father, it's not. And then nativity is the origin of the person of the Father, and thus precedes the relation. So again, fairly esoteric, but also nothing too terribly crazy there. All right, so next time we have a six article question, number 41. The person's in reference to the notional acts. In other words, to these kind of things like generation, begetting, begottenness, blah, 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 spiration, all that good stuff. So we'll look at that next time, and I'll be back in a few days with that one. Until then, I am Ben DeBono, and I will talk to you later. Goodbye, everyone.